Hey, welcome to Tools, Talents, and Techniques. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we jump into the deep end, could you just briefly say who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Sure, my name is Andia Winslow. It's hard to say what I do, but I think I've crystallized it down at this point in life to being a storyteller. And I tell stories through being a voice actor, being an on-camera actor, being an athlete and coach, being an adventurer, being a snack discoverer. All those.
Snack,
That's
snack
right.
discover.
That's right.
Okay, all right, I like that. I didn't have that in my research. Is that what you
Yeah,
do?
it's the most important thing that I do, in fact.
So one of the things I was really excited, I am still really excited about having this conversation because, like you said, it's hard to distill what somebody is and the essence of somebody, but getting to know about you and what you do, there's so many different things, and can't isolate them down to one thing. So to be able to have this conversation with you and talk about your journey into who you've become is gonna be a lot of fun. So my first question, well, I would have put out there. So where does your origin story start? Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born by the river in a little tiny tent. Sorry.
Okay,
For those
good
of you who
start.
Nick, I should have sung it. It would have landed better if I would have sung it. I was born, surprisingly, I was born in Anchorage, Alaska, and a lot of Alaska families moved down to Seattle at some point for employment and just cultural immersion. So we moved down to Seattle. So I was pretty much raised in Seattle, grew up kind of conservation minded, grew up playing golf. Seattle's not really known for golf because it's so rainy, but some really big names have come from the Pacific Northwest, Fred Couples, Peter Jacobson, things like that. And then that's my origin story. Then I went to school back east, and then I've bounced around the country since then. So I've really seen a lot of what this country has to offer, and I think it's afforded me a lot of opportunities and experiences that have made me kind of the well-rounded person that I feel that I am today.
So when you talk about you played golf early in Seattle, how old were you when you first got into the sport?
I was about 10 or 11. It was in a summer program through an organization called First State Golf Club. And that was a golf club that was an affinity group for Black folks because back in the day, golf was segregated and or Black folks of color were not allowed to play golf. So First State Golf Club was founded in the 40s by Wilbert Ponder and some other gentlemen as a way for folks who enjoyed golf to get together. The golf courses, both private and public, were segregated. And so these folks got together for their love of the game. And throughout the years, especially when I joined, they were helping juniors and folks who are new to the game get involved in the game at different levels. I took to it. Wilbert Ponder was my coach. He's also like an adopted grandpa. He was my best friend. Like the mean age of my friendship cohort was like 78 when I
As
was
a 10-year-old, as a 10 or 11-year-old.
yeah. So I think I've kind of got this old soul moniker as a result. But like I'm always looking for the old timer. Where are the old timers at? Where are they? Because that's what I want to be around. And so as a result of their savvy and of their tenaciousness, I learned the game, and they changed a lot of lives, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but all across the country because of, I guess, restrictions that were meant to keep us out, but that actually made us stronger in a way.
Mm. Uh, was there any other sports that you played at the same time? Because sometimes I hear people that play basketball and soccer and all those things. And was there something specific about golf that you were like, oh wow, no, this is for me?
That's a good question. So yeah, I think being kids in the 90s, we played everything. Summertime comes, parents, you leave the door, they lock the door, and you don't come back until the lights come on. So we played everything. We were playing tennis and, um, basketball, and we were riding our bikes, and we were swimming, and we were fording rivers, and we were building forts and all these things. So I did all those things simultaneously. But something about golf, I loved being outside. Something about the fact that golf was outside for this extended amount of time. The challenge changed every day based on the weather, based on how the grass was cut. Nothing was ever the same. You could not master it. It's this eternal challenge. It kept me coming back in a way that other sports didn't. It just held my attention in a way that I think it still does to this day.
And this is something that I think there's a bridge there, but maybe we can explore this because what you do now as a performer, were you involved in theater or singing or any of those other things growing up when you were a youth?
No, I think beyond the general mandatory play that everyone's got to do when they're in seventh grade, I think I was a shrew in Taming of the Shrew. I think that's the only theatrical experience I ever had. Uh, But I was around a lot of arts and culture. Seattle is a place that arts and culture are important. I grew up down the street from Jacob Lawrence, who's a famous American painter. Quincy Jones spent a lot of time in Seattle. A lot of my mentors and people in the community that we interfaced with were famous folks that, looking back, I'm like, dang, Bill Russell was my mentor? Like, I didn't even know who Bill... It was just like another grandpa. I had no idea Jacob Lawrence was one of the most preeminent painters in American history. It's just they were in Seattle and I was in Seattle and lived down the street. So I think looking back, I can say, honestly, that informed me and informed a lot of what I do performatively now. I just didn't know it until now. That makes any sense. But I wasn't a thespian. I didn't design to be, a movie star or a theatrical star or a voiceover star. I had no idea about these things and I did not care. I just wanted to be active and play sports and eat snacks. That was what I wanted. And that is what I'm doing now.
All right, I love that. I love that. And eat snacks. So,
if you can tell, this is the theme, the through line of my life.
Snacks.
Snacks. Yeah.
Sports and snacks. I love it. I love it. So when you're in high school, so golf, you took to it right away, and then you get to high school. Did you play for the local golf team? Were you excelling in tournaments? What did that look like?
Yeah, my school was a small prep school, so I played for the local high school, which is a big one, Roosevelt High School. Played at a high level, competed at a high level, both during school year and in summer. I was top ranked in the world, top 75 in the world at one point in my junior career, recruited by 50 colleges and universities, and so I was following this trajectory, this very quick ascent to the top, and I loved the game, and then adulthood.
Yeah. Okay. So wait, so adulthood, but
adulthood.
you said you went east for college, and if I'm not mistaken, you went to Yale.
I did. Played Yale. Played at Yale.
So you played golf at Yale. Okay.
I did.
I didn't want to assume.
No.
But I assume. But what was that like when choosing a college and saying like, okay, I'm going to go across the country to this school and like getting into like what was the process like of choosing a school and then landing at Yale? I mean, that's amazing.
Sure. I mean, I think although I love the Pacific Northwest, I love growing up on the West Coast. There was something in me that yearned for East Coast sensibility. I love the fact that they wore scarves there and they were fashionable and they were fast paced and they were quick thinking. So I definitely knew early on in my pursuit of higher education that I wanted to be back east. And then the Yale campus, it's in New Haven. So it's kind of got this town gown thing going on. The campus is beautiful. It's about 300 years old when I was there. So it's got this very storied history. The golf course, if you ever get a chance to go to Yale, the New Haven golf course, it's a beautiful course. It's ranked top 50 in the country, Golf Digest and all those rankings. It's a beautiful, beautiful track. And so I just liked all those things that coupled together. And then I had some family on the East Coast. My mom's people are East Coast folks. So I figured I could be around my grandparents on this side. I can experience that side of myself. So, and of course, the academic rigor that was important to me and my family. So it just made sense. I mean, I looked at other places. I looked at Stanford. I was down University of Miami, North Carolina, things like that, University of Washington. And Yale just was the leader in my leaderboard from the very beginning. And that's where I decided to go.
And one of the things that you mentioned before, when you were like around all these preeminent folks when you were young, did it really land on you like how exclusive Yale was, and did you understand that at the time, or looking back now, are you like, wow, that was an interesting experience? And what did you take from all of that?
No, we're primed for that. I mean, I went to a prep school, so they were training us to be the elite students at elite institutions. It's pretty expected. Everyone knows Yale, Harvard, Princeton. I mean, that's just part of this country's the educational renown. So I knew, I was aware. What I did not know is that, and I think most young people don't know, is that what you dream about and what's in the pages of glossy magazines is not always real.
Yeah.
So I think I learned when I went to that institution that the point of schools like that is to teach you how to learn, not to teach you anything in particular. To teach you how to learn, to teach you how to game the system. You learn that folks who are living at that level, living in that echelon, they learn how to bend rules to their liking. They are captains of industry, and I learned that it's all about gamesmanship. That's what I learned at a place like that. I'll be quite honest with you.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that makes sense, but do you really feel like did it hit you right away, like your freshman or sophomore year, and you were like, wait a minute, this
Oh
isn't
yes.
what I thought it like.
Oh yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit? Like, again, you don't have to say names. You don't have to say names or anything specific.
I mean, here's what I'll say. It's kind of interesting. My peers are now going to be vice presidents. My peers are running the country. It's about power. It's about play. It's about who you know. It's about jockeying for position. That's what it's all about. That's my opinion. And it's only my opinion. But having witnessed it firsthand and saying, wow, this is how the world works. It's not a meritocracy, often. In fact, the folks who have the most power should not have the power they have because they're not good people. That's what I learned very acutely. And I think I was just a very naive person at first. I'm like, yes, we're all here to learn and to be citizens of the world. But that's not the way the world works. And that's what I learned. And that parallels golf in some ways. Like it's, I guess the goal in golf is to advance the ball down the field, essentially, right? To get the ball in the hole. It's all about strategy. And that's what politics is. And that's what adulthood is in this country, especially. So I think I learned that in a way that made me open my eyes and become an adult faster than I was looking to become an adult. This conversation has taken a dark turn.
No. Hey, it's not. Hey, listen. No, this is great. This is important. This is important. I think this is really important, especially when you think of how when you're faced with something like this, and so I'd like to dig a little deeper in this. When you're faced with that awakening or that understanding, it's like, what do you do? And if you're faced with this right away, and you're like, oh wait, this isn't what I thought, or this is not, like, what do you do? How do you adjust? And you finished Yale, correct? So like you powered through, you found a way to do that. You have a successful career. So that's what I love about this, having this platform, the show. Like, we could talk about this of, like, you were faced with this and you were like, oh, now I have to pivot. Now I have to do this or that. So
what it did is you don't have to do, I think what it is you go to school like that or any institution, you think, I must do these things to become successful, to have the money to buy the house, to have this. And I realized these things, these beacons or lighthouses that people are trying to achieve or to reach, it's not real. And also it causes very acute unhappiness. So having the things, having the titles, I was made to see very quickly that that's not what it's all about. Why are we going to these schools? So that we can get the best jobs. Why do we want the best jobs? So we can make the most money. Why do we want the most money? So we can buy the biggest house and the biggest car and marry the most fancy person. Why? And are all these people who have accumulated all these things happy? No, they are not in most cases. And I learned that very, very quickly, and I think in a way that was a gift. Because as a result, I'm not an Autobot. I'm not on an assembly line. I didn't do the, consultant, lawyer, doctor thing, which is what most folks do. And a lot of my friends are recovering in all those industries. They're recovering lawyers, recovering doctors, recovering consultants. And maybe now and after their first or second divorce, they're like, wait, it's my life. Wait, I should do what I want. And I'm like, yes, I've been trying to tell you that for some time now.
But people have to, everyone takes their own journey, and everyone has to learn their own way, and at their own pace. Hopefully everyone does. Some people never do. So and your major in college was sociology and interdisciplinary study and film studies, but I started as a physics major, and that was another thing. I was physics, astrophysics. I wanted to be working at NASA. And then after a year, I was like, wait, actually, these are not my people, and I don't want to be in a lab, and I don't want to be in academia. So again, a serious pivot where I was like, wait, my dreams, my interstellar dreams are slashed. It's not going to work for me. So there was a lot of pivot. I was just dancing all over the floor, just pivoting all over the place. And looking back, I think I was nervous while it was happening, and there's a little bit of despair. But looking back, I'm like, dang, those things prepared me for this very strange and circuitous career I have now. All those lived experiences are adding to what I'm offering performatively in the worlds that I work now. I love that. You just hit the nail on the head. So when you're doing all this in college and you're figuring, and you're pivoting, you're dancing, you're just sliding, you're moving around.
sliding,
Um,
falling.
how is the golf going? Are you performing at a high level, or are you learning in that? Are you like what's going on
Uh,
there?
I would say we can keep this conversation brief. I did not have the best experience at college in golf. We had some disagreements, myself and the coach, and they have been storied. I would say that even that experience, looking back, although it was traumatic, trauma filled and tumultuous while I was going through it, that experience steeled my nerve for things to come in life. And I'll leave it at that. It was not a good experience. Also, I was the first African American woman to play varsity golf at Yale in the Ivy League, and I was treated as such. Let's leave it at that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
So are you so in there and you stopped playing golf, or you
No,
was you
I
having
played.
it?
I
Oh,
played.
you kept playing.
I kept playing.
So what was that like? Like, what was your next step after college? Like, you graduate, you had a rough experience, an enlightening experience in
Right,
college,
for sure.
and then like what is your next step? How did you transition out of school?
So I think my dad's an attorney. He's a lawyer, and I think he thought the natural good step for me would be to go to law school because not necessarily to be the litigator, but just to have the training. He figured that law school is a great training ground, but I didn't want to do that. Didn't want to go to business school, and I was kind of in this liminal space. I had no idea. I was confused. I'm like, do I love golf? Do I not love golf? The experience was poor. I'm behind the eight ball here in a way. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Physics didn't work out for me in the way I wanted to. I wasn't really thinking about filmmaking. What do you do with sociology? I didn't want to be a professor. So I was working for one of my uncles who's an entertainer, and I did some international tours with him, being like a tour manager. So that was kind of fun and different. And then I said, no, I do love golf, and I love what golf has afforded me. And so I went with another uncle down to Florida, and I worked at Walt Disney World Properties. So I was working at their 5 golf courses in Orlando. And so I did everything from, tournament operations to working POS in the pro shop to teaching to, helping customers on the golf course. So I really got to see golf from a very comprehensive angle. And so I worked in the golf industry, and then I realized again, I don't want to be in the office. I want to be out on the course. I want to be playing. So I started to gear up to compete again. Things started to come back my way. I was refinding the love of the game, started competing. And then I realized maybe after a couple of years, I'm like, I actually want to compete at the highest level. I want to turn pro. And so that was, I guess, a year of that after college. And then in 2007, 2008, I decided, okay, I've got to make a full run at this. I got to move to a place that it's going to allow me competitive opportunities. I need to get sponsorship. I need to do all things. And so I moved to Arizona because there was a small mini tour there at that time. But yeah.
When you made that decision, when you came back, and sometimes, the separation from, I mean, you were still working in it, but there was a little bit of separation from actually the competition part. Do you recall when you made that decision? Like, was there like a day or a week or a season that you're like, you know what? I want back in.
It's a good question. I think what it was is we had a PGA Tour event on our campus, and so every year they'd come and players would ask me, "Hey, can we do a practice round? You know the course, like show me the track." And so I'm out with the caddies. I'm with tour players. I caddy during the pro-am. I'm like, this is what I want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to be around, and there's a lot of mini tour players, a lot of tour players in Orlando. So, I'm hitting balls with tour players, mostly men at that time, playing my sunset rounds with folks when they had time for an extra 9 holes. And I'm like, okay, I do have game. My friends are doing it professionally, making money and living the dream. So I think since I'm in their orbit, I think that's a natural progression. I can do this. Little did I know it costs lots of money, and I had none. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know acutely how much money it would cost and the stresses I'd be under. But yeah, so I just being around it and that tour event coming every year. Back then it was the Walmart, or it was the Children's Miracle Network event at Disney at Paul Mag, and it just every year I'm just like, I loved it, but also I was like, let me out. I got to get out there. So
when you started competing again, you were like, it costs money. Like, how did you go about finding sponsors? How did you go about the process of getting back into it? Because I would imagine again, I don't know this industry that intimately yet, but you're going like there's a track and you went off the track and then you got to get back. So there's not that momentum or,
Right.
but people still know who you are and what you do. They seen you around. Like what did you do to get back in?
Well, you know what happened. You work in a business in which the year 2008. What happened in 2008?
Everything crumbled. Subprime worked. Yeah, it was bad.
Right. So I decided to turn pro in the year that subprime mortgage. Like I turned pro in a time where everyone lost all their money, which meant there was no money. But golf requires money, especially at that level. I mean, you need at least 150K a year to be competitive. And you're competing against people who either are silver spoon kids or they're international students who are international players whose federations, whose countries are paying for their facilities fees, for their coaching, for their care, for their, reoccurring expenses. So in order to be competitive, I need the money to do so. I was working 4, 5, 6, 17 odd jobs to pay. So I'd, work in the morning, my tee time's at 10 for a tournament, go to the tournament, finish, drive through traffic, go to work. And I was doing that the entire time that I was trying to play professionally, and it just really wasn't sustainable. So I did have some money. I was a tailor-made Adidas athlete, so I did have some funding from them. I had some coaches that really believed in me who did not charge me. I had a landlord that was very, very patient. So there were ways that I received support, but at that time it was just hard. And there's an explosion of women's sports support for women's sports right now in 2024, but in 2008 there wasn't. Why would a sponsor give me 5, 10, 15, 20, 100K when they can give a man of equal ability that much money and the return on their investment will be higher? Because even if I won the tournament and the mini tour, if he placed 10th, he would make more money than me. So it's not a good allocation of resources. So there was no support. And so as a result, it was a struggle. And I think there's a lot more equity. There's purse equity now in some places, but and that happened because of tennis, because of Serena and Venus. They made sure purse equity was a thing, and Billie Jean King. But like in the mini tour level, there's no purse equity. There was just no money. Everyone lost money in the mortgage crisis and investments and things like that. So it was tough.
How long, when you went back to compete, how long was this stretch? I want to, because here's the thing. I love talking. I want to make sure that we save enough time to talk about what you're doing now in your career and all the projects you're doing and all the awards you win. But I think this is important because this tells part of your story. So how long were you competing when you went back in?
I was doing it probably full time for about 2.5 years. I mean, I say full time, but full on effort, maybe 3, maybe. And then it was untenable. And then I had some family things come up that I needed to attend to and some other opportunities that kind of came my way unexpectedly. But yeah, I tried. I had some success early on. And then the mental game, as you know, as a golfer, it comes in. And so it's like if you're standing over a putt thinking about, if I miss this, I don't make rent, that's not conducive to high performance. So it was definitely a struggle, but one that definitely, I would say, again, steeled my nerve and made me pliable and strong for the adventure to come, as it were.
Okay, so this adventure to come, what was the transition out of this? Because you mentioned there's some things that came up and you were unexpectedly. How did you make the next step?
Sure. So when I lived in Florida, I also trained at a place called the Wide World of Sports, which is ESPN's property, Disney's property. And so I was cross-training for golf. I was an athlete, just generally a generalist. And so I wanted to stay in shape. So I'd go out and run on the track. And out at the track, one day I see these beautiful, sweaty bodies in this one angle of the track. And I was like, oh, who are they? And it turns out it was the U.S. Olympic track and field team training group. And so I was like, all right, well, and the coach kind of called me over. He's like, well, what's your deal? Because I look like a runner. I look like a sprinter, a middle distance runner. So he saw my stride. He's like, you have a pretty good stride. Why don't you come out and train with us? And so I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything else at 4 p.m. on weekdays, of course. And of course, these wonderful, beautiful athletes here. And so I ended up spending time when I was in Florida training with the U.S. Olympic track team, track and field team with Brooks Johnson, who was an Olympic Hall of Fame coach, who just passed away this year, actually, sadly. And he was my coach. And so in that training, he kept saying, like, you missed your calling. You should have been a sprinter. You should have been a hurdler. Like, you have this crazy natural talent. And It's too bad that you're using it on golf, but whatever, do you? A couple years later, the USA Bobsled and Skeleton Federation was recruiting summer athletes to winter sports. And my name got brought up as someone who might be able to transition because I played a lot of sports from one discipline to another. And so they called me and they said, "Do you want to try out for the bobsled?" I was like, what is this? What is this joke? It was not a joke. And so
cool runnings comes to mind.
Cool runnings, American style. And so I said, well, I just coming off of golf not working and taking care of some family things that took me away from the game for a bit. So I'm like, I'm not in shape. I have no muscle tone. I don't. They're like, well, just you got a couple weeks. See if you can't pass this combine. We'll give you a couple months and come up here to Lake Placid, New York, to Olympic Training Center, and see if you don't pass the test. If you don't pass the test, fine, go about your way. But if you do, maybe you consider. So, a month of cramming. I was like in the gym, Olympic lifting. I was sprinting. I was eating. I was trying to gain some weight because I was super, super lean then. And so I'm like, heck, what? I'm not doing anything else. Golf's not working out. I just don't know what's happening. And so I went and I passed. Everyone was surprised. It was like, no way this skinny mini from Arizona who played golf, there's no way she could. And I passed. So then next thing is like, do you want to move up here to Lake Placid and train for the Olympics? Sure. Why not? So I'm there, and they're like, actually, you're too small for the bobsled. You're too light. I weighed, I think, like 124 pounds, 121 pounds. There's no way you can gain weight in enough time. But there's this other sport called skeleton. And I was like, okay, well, sure, let's try that. Skeleton is like luge, except luge is on your back, supine. Skeleton, you're on your chest, prone, head first, down an ice track on your own individual sled. So I was like, yeah, why not? My life's imploded. I have nothing else to do. You said I could live here for free and eat all your food. Like, I guess I'll stay. So I did that.
That's hilarious. I don't know a lot about skeleton, but when I've seen it, I'm like, wow, that's intense.
Not very bright, but I did that. And again, it was another circuitous part of the journey. And I got lost here in the question. What was the point of this question? How did I get to where I am now? Right? Is that the question?
No, hey, no, this is. First of all, you went by something that I think is important. I would like to go back to that. When you were on that track and you saw the people running, and somebody's like, "Hey, do you want to train with us?" Like, what amazing just moment in time. Like, you could have been doing it. You could have got, I don't know, gotten a snack at that time and not going out there and not seeing those folks.
Lots of snacks. That's why.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, sometimes these moments in your life, in your journey, in your experience, can be so random, and you never, or you could have been like, "No, I'm good. Like, I got something to do," and right. None of that would have happened. It's just so amazing to me, like how fortuitous some things are, or non-fortuitous, right? Like that doesn't work out, whatever. But like these moments that when you look back at them, you're like, wow, that's so crazy that happened. Like having to be at that one point at that one time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't had that experience on the track. I mean, Brooks really said, no, it wasn't even a question like, do you want to? It was like, be here tomorrow at 4. And I was like, yes, sir. Again, he was an elder, and I listened to my elders. So I figured, like, there's a reason. So I would say that's a really good point. A through line in my life is I'm not just like what's around the bend. I want to go see. I want to experience what's around the bend. And it's curiosity. I want to know, what are they doing at 4 p.m. every day? And look, there's like 12 gold medals between these people right here. These world champions here. Like, I could train on my own and cross-train and run by myself, but like, wouldn't it be cool to be around greatness? Wouldn't it be cool to see what they're doing in a different genre of sport? And as a result, I think that experience changed my life. I mean, definitely. Yeah. And I don't know that I'd be doing voiceover if it hadn't been for track and field. And I definitely wouldn't have been doing track and field if it hadn't been for golf. So.
And that, what you just expressed of the curiosity and wouldn't it be cool, right? But then actually going and doing it. Because I feel like that's one of the things that I'm really experiencing in my life, in my experience, that, like, why, like, oh, that's cool. Like, why don't I try that? Like I want to do that. Or like, oh, that'd be cool. It'd be cool if we do this. But a lot of people might say that, but fewer people actually do it, right? Like that, you're like, oh, it'd be cool if this happened. And then never do it. And you get busy or life or whatever. But the fact that you have that curiosity, but then you also have that, you take that initiative to do it is really impressive. And that's one of the things, like, I was so excited about having this conversation because of all the things that you're expressing. I knew this was you.
Yeah. I think it's personal, but it's also just kind of the village that you were raised in. My parents are responsible for this kind of trajectory because they taught both my brother and I that we could do anything, and we believed them. And so we were bred to think that, and I don't even think twice about trying something new, and I'm not afraid to. In fact, oftentimes I seek out failure opportunities because I know that's where the most growth comes from. So I got to give credit to my parents and my family for really just kind of enriching me, and always, like, I've got an uncle who played in the NFL, and it was never, I wanted to be a tight end or a wide receiver growing up. And no one ever said you can't because you're a girl. They said, you're a little small. And so maybe you could try this because it really works for people your size. And I was like, oh, yeah. No one ever told me no. They just said, how about this? Have you considered this? What about that? And I was like, okay. So, like, they put before me this feast, this cornucopia of opportunities. And I said, yeah, I'll pick that. I'll take one of those. I'll take that. You can see, again, food. I don't know why this theme of food.
Yeah, no, it's a fuel. It's but so when I think about mentorship, and not just, from parents or other people around you, like, I think that's so it's cool that you're bringing that up, because now that I can kind of see how important that is in people's lives, and not being somebody like, no, that ain't gonna work. Like, yeah, that ain't work. Like, I want fewer people around me that are like that, and more people that are like, yeah, why not? Or that's great. Like, let me help you, or maybe you should do this or that, and just people that push things forward. That
right.
Like, those are the folks that I like to keep in my life, and not that like everybody needs to be like that all the time. I get it. For other reasons, people, they may have their best intentions on telling you, like, why you shouldn't go around that corner and check that thing out. I get it.
Yeah.
But the more people you have around you, like, yeah, like, give it a shot. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the folks I want in my circle.
Definitely.
So, and hopefully I'm not skipping any parts here, but, like, then how did the voiceover act? Like, how did you get into that?
Sure. So, skeleton, I realized very quickly on that being concussed all the time and being broken and bruised was not my thing. I didn't enjoy that. And also, it was cold. It was like 20 below, and you're in skin tight suits. So after the first year, I was like, it was a cool adventure trying to chase the Olympic dream, but I think I've had my fill. So Lake Placid's a couple hours north of New York City. I came down to New York City to try to get some respite before moving back to Arizona. And I was like, oh man, I get to live in New York City for a little bit of my 20s, which everyone, I think, has a dream of somewhere in the recesses of their mind. So I stayed in the city. I was teaching golf. I was teaching some fitness things. And one day I was coaching runners for the New York City Marathon. And one of the people in the room was an agent, a talent agent. And she approached me after class, and she didn't say, you have a great voice or you have lovely dulcet tones, you should do voiceover. She said, you are a great storyteller. And I've never taken a class where someone kind of weaves a narrative about my running. It's not just like reps and sets. It's like, you got me from point A to point B in a very colorful way. You should consider voiceover. I didn't know what that meant. Got some vocal lessons as a gift, for birthday gift. The voiceover coach was like, you should consider voiceover. You both tell stories well, and you have a very interesting voice. Don't recreate, like, don't pass it, go straight to it. Like, you could do this. And so, again, I was kind of hemming and hawing. I didn't really know what that meant because I was firmly in the worlds of sports performance and coaching. And then I just started auditioning. And then one of my first gigs was to be a voice of PBS. And I love PBS. I mean, I grew up, we only were allowed to watch PBS. So I was like, oh, wow, cool. And then I saw the check and I was like, wait, hold up. You mean to tell me I can do something I love from home in my closet and make money and tell stories? And that's how voiceover came to be. So it was very random, just off someone saying, hey, I like the way you tell stories. And then, yeah.
And was the first opportunity PBS, or were there other things?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Yes,
I mean, World Channel. Chris Hastings. He was the first one to give me a job, and I think I probably lied. It's like voiceover experience, extensive.
Extensive. That's right. I've been talking all my life. I've been talking my whole life.
But Yeah, no. And then I use those funds to. I want to get back to the West Coast to my family anyway, so I use the funds from that check to join the union SAG-AFTRA to pay first, last, and deposit in my studio apartment in LA, and to start training. And I spent a whole year training for voiceover, and that's how it all began. Because of sport, because of skeleton, because of track and field, because of golf, voiceover. Very, very strange.
I mean, you could call it strange. I call it unique, which is, it's absolutely beautiful. So you get into voiceover, you're like, oh my God, like I could do this. And then like where was the, okay, now this is my career. Like, this is what I'm doing. Did the person that introduced you, was it like get an agent and then figure, like, what were those next steps?
No, the person who told me I had a great storytelling capability did not think I was worthy of signing. So I had no talent agent. So when I got to LA, so it kind of was
I'd imagine, hey, you'd be good at this.
Yeah,
I mean, not good enough for me, but good enough for somebody.
You might be good, but don't ever come to my door.
Yeah.
Don't you darken my door. No, so I got to LA. LA is a place, if anyone knows anything about LA, New York is all about, again, it's about merit. It's about, you've done this, here's your body of work, whatever. But LA is like, who do you know? And I was new to LA. I knew no one. So people were like, well, you have this PBS credit. Fine, but we don't know you. And so I knocked on doors. No doors opened. So I said, hey, that's fine. I'm going to use the money from my PBS money, and I'm going to spend a year training. I'm going to decompress from the life in New York City. I'm going to decompress from life upstate. I'm going to just train. I'm going to take every class. I'm going to read every book. I'm going to watch every video. I'm going to go to every screening, every plenary session. I'm going to just take it all in. So I did that for a year. In addition to exploring LA. And after that year, it's like the light switch went on. Then I got an agent, and then I started booking like crazy. And that was in 2019 is when I completed my year of just training and self-study. And then it just has been like this ever since. So I put in the time, I did the work. I continue to do the work now. I still train and things like that. But it wasn't an immediate success. That first booking was an immediate success, but that was a little bit of a fluke. I think it was kind of like my little treat to get in the door. But after that, I worked very, very hard and also strategically. And yeah, that's how it went down. So yeah.
Well, that reminds, sometimes I meet somebody who was relatively new to golf, and it's like the first time they go out, they just flush one or get a hole in one, and you're like, what? How did you do like that? So it sounds like you just knocked it out of the park, and then your first go around and got that taste. The people tell you the golf, the shot that keeps them coming back.
Oh yeah.
Well, to get that first one, like that's amazing.
Yeah, but it whet my appetite. But then I realized that this is a craft. This is people have been doing this for years. There's different genres that require different points of focus. It's highly competitive. I would say, almost, to be quite honest, voiceover is more competitive than professional golf in my experience. And I've played professional sports. I've played elite sports. It's more competitive because it's also subjective. It's like, who's to say? So it's and there's so many very talented people. Like, there's no exaggeration when I say that sometimes I'm auditioning against Morgan Freeman. That is actually realistic. I mean, he's not auditioning, but they're considering him, and then they audition everyone else. So it's like, I'm auditioning with people. I'm auditioning against Oprah. I'm auditioning against Michelle Obama. Literally, my voice is being considered with these people who are at the top of not just their game creatively, but the world. So it's something where I realized, in order to stay fresh, in order to stay primed, I had to do the work, and I was committed to doing that work as I was when I was playing sports. And so I think the sports mindset, when it's transferred to other endeavor, is why when you see so many athletes in the C-suite and the E-suite, you see them being successful because all the tenets of athleticism and focus and discipline are so readily available. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No.
They land everywhere else. They land very well.
Well, yeah, and that, that completely tracks with what you're saying, because when you said, I'm going to train, I'm going to work on my craft. not exactly the same, but there are similarities to, okay, I know how to get in the gym and work
Mm-hmm.
on this and this part
Mm-hmm.
of my game. I know how to go out there and work on chipping, putting, irons.
Right.
Like I know how to break this out and train to get there. So you having that background and that experience, I'm absolutely positive that's like that's a huge thing of why
Definitely.
you've been so successful.
And also, I guess in business, you just the less personally you take things, I think the better off you'll be.
Mm.
If you don't get the gig, if you don't sell the house, if you don't get the contract, you can't just whine and lament the fact that you didn't get it. Okay, on to the next. We have to keep advancing the ball. Like we don't have time to waste. I did 5 auditions, I got 0. Okay, but there's 5 more coming. So
Mm-hmm.
if I sit over here and languish, nothing's gonna come of it. I got to keep moving forward. I got to still put my reps in the gym. I still have to, do my vocal warm ups and do my cold calling and things like that. So I really feel like sport is a metaphor for life in a lot of ways, and it's really what's kind of propelled me and primed me for the different genres I've worked in and have explored and experimented in.
Of the different voiceover work that you've done, and whether it's TV, movie, like commercial, like what for you has come out to be like this is the most fun, this is the most challenging, this is the ones I
Mm.
like pushing for more, like what again, for somebody who's not familiar with the industry whatsoever, I mean, are there certain things like, oh, these are like the easy, not easy ones, but like these are the ones that you do in my sleep, and these are the ones that really take like digging into the character or the whatever
Mm.
the experience.
That's a really good question. I would say, first of all, there are people who work in genre and they don't escape it. They're live announce people, or they're audiobook people, or they're commercial people only. I heard a phrase, actually, I think it was last year, earlier this year. The person said that they were genre fluid. And I was like, I want to be genre fluid, so I really can weave in between in different genres. I think the hardest for me, the most technically difficult and mentally taxing, is audiobook, because I'm a sprinter by nature. I'm a fast twitch person. Audiobooks is like running an ultra marathon.
Mm.
What happens is you come into your studio. This is my home studio here, for example, and you're in there for 6 to 8 hours a day in the darkness reading, and your tongue starts to get tired and your brain starts to invert words. And, there's other people listening on the line, so mistakes, so there's self-critique going on. But when you're done, you're like, wow, that was intense. And you do that for maybe a week or two. Then you do what's called pickups, so you have to go back and correct your mistakes. And it takes a lot of energy for someone like me. But then there's some people who will pick up a piece of paper, and it's called a cold reading. They've never seen the words before, and they can read it just seamlessly, no mistakes. And they're just so slow, and they're just like, how do you do that? It's a different skill. But this year, I was actually honored to read Brittany Griner's book, Coming Home, which is her autobiography about her time in Russia. And that book was very difficult to read because of the subject matter, but I think it was really impactful. And so I think what I do now is I try to find work that's both entertaining and fun, but also work that's impactful and tells a story that will resonate with folks, or disseminate news in a way people wouldn't consume it otherwise. People are not going to read a book, but they might listen. And so I think those are the projects that I found to be most important. Hardest, I would say audiobook. Most fun, probably video games and animation. I also enjoy live announce. Enjoy sports. So, being the voice to open up the MLB season this year is kind of cool. You hear your voice in the Dodger Stadium, and that's awesome. And doing some Super Bowl things like that. So that stuff is always great, because it's like my worlds combined. I got sports and not vocal work combining in a way that's that sounds real to the listeners, and it makes me feel like, okay, I'm still in the game, as it were, in a strange way. So that's always a lot of fun.
And so that's amazing that you're doing all these different things, and like you said, you're genre fluid. I want to go back to the audiobooks thing for a second. So when you're reading it, how does it work? Do you like read the whole book first and then do it, or do you just like read the chapter and like, okay, I got it, like now I read, like how does that work?
I'm not sure if there's a fixed rule, but most voice actors, narrators will read the entire book because you need context.
Mm-hmm.
And you also need to prepare your questions and prepare your characters. Let's say it's a piece of fiction. So you need to know how to pronounce all the names. And if you got 10 characters, you need to prepare like a character Bible for each character, so that when you start production, you can land and anchor yourself in the character. So character A, character B, this person's a female, this person's 16 years old, this person's from the country. If you don't know that ahead of time, you can't properly plan. So it's it's a lot of work, and then it's the pre-work, the pre-game, and then there's the actual game time stuff, which is just like, you're just like, oh man, can you? I'm also ADHD, so it's just like I'm like sitting here like, oh, let me out of this cage. So it takes a lot, but
you mentioned self-criticism. So when you're doing it and you're reading, and the people listening in, are they giving you comments while you're doing it as well?
Mm-hmm. Especially if you make mistakes, which I'd make.
Especially.
They're like, yes, let's take that again. It's just like all the videos you see, the spoofs. It's just like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the ADHD, and you're like having to sit there. Is there anything that you do? Like, do you have like fidget spinners or anything? Like, is there anything that you use like that?
No, that would take me out of it. I think what I do is oh, this is interesting. You know when you're standing over the ball, and you're having trouble making impact, flush impact.
Every time.
Right.
Every time.
I'm not trying to call you out, Dustin. What you can do is to look at the back of the ball and try to watch your club strike your ball at impact. I think a lot of people they hear, keep your head down, whatever. That's not precise enough data or information. If you try to watch the moment of impact, you will be focused. So for me in audiobooks, I try to watch the very last letter of each word before I say the next. And that's how I try to focus. That's the same moment of impact. Before I move on to the next word, I have to finish the word. So let's say the word is farm. I'm looking at the M of the farm before I move on to the next word, which is animal, farm animal. So I'm like, farm animal, which is the moment of impact. And that's how I stay in the zone. Otherwise, I would be slurring and cussing, and because I just can't. It's just a lot. There comes a point in audiobooks in which you'll see the word the, and you're just like, because your brain's like, I've had enough. You can't even say the word. It's just like your tongue is tired, your tongue is heavy in your mouth. There's nothing left. And that's why.
that little tip, that technique that you use, is that something that you learned along the way, or is that something that you just felt like was instinctual?
I take skills from sport and I put them into my creative pursuits, acting and voice acting. That's me doing that. That's me saying, how can I make this relate to my brain? How can I make this athletic? How can I see? Because what it is it's action, right? Even though voiceover is just my voice, I have to find a way to make it active. So, for example, when I'm in the booth, you hear me say, on sale now. I'm not just saying on sale now. I'm using my body, and so I'm a very physical. I'm very physical with my performance, and people are like, does that help? It does. If I'm trying to cut through a line, I'll do this. If I'm trying to ask a question, I say, is it? With my hand, because it helps me get there. If I'm trying to, land something somber or dark, I'll go down. So like, this weather sucks. But that physicality helps me land the plane, as it were. And so I try to take things from sport into voiceover because it makes me feel alive. When I'm in a padded room in darkness and have to be still and have to keep my mouth on axis, like you're not supposed to move, but I find ways to make my body move, to make my brain move, to make my brain agile, to help deliver performances that are alive, so that you as a listener, when you're listening with headphones especially, it's a very intimate experience. How can I bring myself to life? So if I'm trying to be happy, if I was saying, like, my team's going to win, I could say, my team's going to win. And you don't really believe it. But if I put a smile, my team's going to win. You can hear that. And as a result, you are going to be affected. So my job is to tell a story to make you move, do, go, buy. And the way I get to that story the most efficient way and effective way is to move my body in a way that makes my voice sound a way, that makes your brain react in a way. That was deep.
That was deep. Two things. I mean, that was very deep, but it was very accurate. And one of the things that I think of when people, there's the expression, keep your eye on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, all right, yeah, look at the ball. But it's like, no, that's not precise enough.
Yeah.
That's not, it's a suggestion, but it's not really direction. But by telling somebody, no, look at this dimple, or watch the club hit that dimple, then you're giving somebody like a more precise direction on an instruction. So that makes a lot of sense. But then, how you're developing these skills and these techniques and how you're advancing your craft. I always feel like there's a level of proficiency that you have to get to then get creative, right? Like you need to know the foundation in many instances. You need to have a fundamental understanding of it to then know how your brain works with it or how your body works with it. And then that's where you start to be unleashed, right? Where you can just be, and then it becomes your own. And I think you nailed it. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, it's all about nuance, I think, ultimately too.
Mm-hmm. Before we take off here, is there anything, because you haven't talked about snacks in a few minutes, is there anything that that you want to promote or you want to talk about, or just any words of wisdom that you want to share with the listeners before we take off?
Words of wisdom, I would say, I think a lot of people want the end result, and this might sound trite, but you really have to do the work. And the work can be making a cold call, reading a book, asking questions. I think that I've been fortunate enough to know that that's a way to get things done, but also that people have answered my emails when I just cold emailed them, and do these things in a respectful way. But you really have to do the work. I put the reps in. I was shooting in the gym when other people weren't, literally. So that's when your luck and your opportunity meet and all that things, that those sayings are true. Doing the work, being respectful, I think is also very important, especially now, folks. Everything is so quick and casual, but I think respect is something that's a skill and a craft that should be explored more often, especially in younger generations. In terms of what's coming up, if you're a gamer, we've got Call of Duty, which is taking the world by storm right now. I'm in there, a character called West Point. I'm an operator in that. The Alien franchise. I'm really excited to be a part of that franchise. They've got a VR game coming out in December, and I play Azula Hendrix, who is the main character, the protagonist, and it's VR, so you're playing from my perspective, which is kind of neat. Quite a few animated shows coming in at the top of the year, and then a show on HBO Max movie on HBO Max called Calamity. It's a Warner Brothers take on an old classic, and it's a horse movie. I'm cowgirl, so that's coming out in the top of the year too. So a lot of cool projects. But I think I just am really thankful that I've had the opportunities I've had, and that, to be quite honest, this life has not been direct, because I've had a lot of fun along the way. There've been failures, there've been successes, there've been discoveries, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's amazing. And on the point of being thankful, like I appreciate you sharing your story. Your journey is unique and it's authentic. And so congratulations on all your success, on your future success. It's really impressive. I'm going to copy all your information on the show notes to share it. But I'm so honored to meet you and to share this time with you. Thank you so much.
So when you come to LA, we're going to get a burrito, because I got the spot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know you, if there's anyone who knows where the snacks are,
it's on the corner of Olympic and La Brea. We're going to go there. El Chato Tacos, you and me, we got to get a burrito.
All right, we'll do it. Well, hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Was it? Okay. Sometimes
you're...
Bring it back. I got to bring it back. Oh, God.
No, that was...